Good. Oh, good morning. How are you? Good to have you here. Welcome to the talk, How to Win the Future. I'm Dara Briain. You know me as 2007's Ramesh Ranganathan. Or the ghost of Nish Kumar past. Anyways, I got hundreds of these. Anyway, so it is a delight to have you here for this talk, which is actually going to be, I think, quite interesting indeed within the context of talk generally. Because it is more blue sky possibly than you normally get at this festival. Is three speakers from outside or on the kind of overlapping with the industry, but not directly involved in the industry. And I think they could go in a number of different directions. Obviously, we'd like you to participate. I'll explain how that happens as it goes along. But the topics we'll be addressing will be ones of AI, ones will be about maintaining creativity, ones about the FAANGS, which are Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google, and how to avoid the encroach of that, or embrace the encroach of that, and basically be touching on many of these topics. The three talkers we have, and I'll introduce them obviously as it goes along. Let's see if I got these in the right order. Tim Leibrecht, who's going to talk to us how we can win against artificial intelligence, or AI, or romanticize our business. Ashley Turing will reveal how to beat the FAANGS, and Monica Bielskita will show us how to beat mediocrity. Now, obviously, you can expand on that in whatever way you want to, but it broadly we'll be talking about the future, and then at the very end we'll show you how to win, but we're going to hold that back. And it's kind of like a big reveal at the end. Sorry, we won't be doing that. So I did say, by the way, that we would like you to participate. Obviously, we'd love you to do that as well. In the good old days, we just hand you a microphone and let you speak in a room in which you can clearly hear each other. But no, far more interesting to put technology unnecessarily into that process. And if there's a metaphor for what we're doing wrong here, it is all questions should be submitted via the app, and then it will be read out in a dehumanizing, depersonalizing way. But there may be something you wish to say. So we would like you to try via the app, and then we can back up with hopefully using the mic as well as it goes along. No, I won't. Okay. So without further ado, rather than me going into any gags or any nonsense routines, let's go to our speakers, and then we'll listen to the speakers, and then there'll be a whole session at the end of having more of a chat. Our first speaker, let's see, yes, described as a humanist in Silicon Valley. He's the author of The Business Romantic and co-founder and CEO of the Business Romantic Society, a consultancy that helps organizations and leaders make their strategy, culture, and brand more human in an age of AI and automation. Could you please welcome Tim Leibrecht?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Good morning. I'm a business person, but I'm also an unapologetic romantic. And I believe the world would be a better place if we had more romance in our lives. And I believe we must find it and create it in and through business. Easy it is not. Human work remains a paradox. So on the one hand, we are miserable without work, because work gives us meaning, gives us a sense of identity. Work is how we integrate into society. But on the other hand, many of us, if not most of us, are miserable at work, as the annual Gallup survey shows. Only 70% or 30% only are fully engaged at work. And there's actually a recent poll that found that there's only one activity that's considered less desirable than work, and that is being sick in bed. And maybe that's not surprising, because at the workplace we are expected to be flawless, consistent productivity machines. And digital technology has done one thing: it has scaled efficiency. And those efficiency pressures are only going to increase with the rise of the fourth industrial revolution. 50%, the infamous Oxford study predicts, of the human workforce are going to be replaced by AI and robots in the next 20 years. So that's you or your neighbor. And let's face it, many CEOs welcome that as a chance to increase profits. Machines are more efficient. Humans are complicated. So the great danger, I believe, is not smart machines. It is that we become smart machines ourselves. The New York Times wrote about the movie Her by Spike Jonze. The great question is not whether machines will be able to think. The great question is, will we humans still be able to feel? So what are we going to do about it? As machines take our jobs and do them more efficiently, and they will. Perhaps the most important work for us humans is the kind of work that must be done beautifully rather than efficiently. To maintain our humanity in this age of machines, we may have no other choice but to create beauty. But how? Well, let me propose 3 principles. I call them the rules of enchantment. First, do the unnecessary. So I once worked at a company that was the result of a merger of a large IT outsourcing firm, 9,000 software developers, mostly in India, and 1,000 creative types designers from the West Coast in the US. And to unify these vastly different cultures, we were going to launch a third new brand, and the new brand color was going to be orange. And as we were going through the launch plan, we decided last minute to cut the purchase of 10,000 orange balloons that we had meant to distribute to all staff worldwide. They just seemed cute, unnecessary, not mission critical, as I remember the CFO saying. So we cut them. We didn't know back then that our decision to cut the purchase of these 10,000 balloons marked the beginning of the end. That these two organizations would never become one. And sure enough, the merger eventually failed. Now, did it fail because there weren't any orange balloons? No, not entirely. But the kill the orange balloons mentality permeated everything else. You might not always realize it, but if you cut the unnecessary, you cut everything. To lead with beauty means to rise above what is merely necessary. So do not kill your orange balloons. Rule number 2, embrace the other. So I recently came across a study that found that the average American has only one close friend, and the numbers are not that different in the UK and in large parts of Europe, and they have been deteriorating over the past few years. So much so that sociologists speak of an age of social isolation and loneliness epidemic, which is astonishing, isn't it? Given the fact that we've never been more connected, never been more communicative than at this point in history. We check our phones 80 times a day on average. Some of you have already checked it since I began speaking. Some of us go to the restroom just to check emails. And yet, we are lonelier than before. Why? The author, Richard Bach, has an explanation. He says the opposite of loneliness is not just connectivity or being together, it's intimacy. And we are in dire need for more intimacy in these digital times. How do we create it? And whom can we learn from? Artists. Artists are very good at creating intimacy. Take the performance artist Marina Abramovic on her show, The Artist is Present in New York City. That's exactly what she did. She was present for 700 hours. She sat across from one visitor at a time, 5 minutes each, silently looking into each other's eyes, celebrating the kind of time that is thick rather than lean and efficient. And it's that notion of thick time that is entering business mainstream as well. So some companies like Daimler, for example, have begun to insert silent minutes at the beginning of meetings. And some companies have even begun to hold silent dinners with their executives. So I took part in one a few weeks ago, and I have seen a lot of awkward things in my career, but 90 minutes with 30 German business executives was certainly the most awkward experience I've ever had. But it was also beautiful because they were vulnerable, they were present, they dropped all their masks. So that's how you create intimacy. No masks or lots of masks. That's what Danone did, the food company. They held a strategy retreat, brought together 200 people, and they asked them to wear costumes, wigs, silly hats, feather boas for the entire 3-day meeting. That's, by the way, the CEO, Emmanuel Faber. And it was a success, and they left with concrete decisions and full of enthusiasm. And when I asked the woman who had designed it why it had been so successful, she simply replied, "Never underestimate the power of a ridiculous wig." Because wigs, like masks, they allow us to be somebody else. They give us the faith that another world is possible and the means to enter it. And in our digital world, our avatars, our virtual selves, they allow us to assume fluid, different identities, even contradictory identities. They allow us to step into the lives of others, especially those who are not like us, including those who do not like us, or even hate us. So the ultimate other, of course, is artificial intelligence, AI. Last week, a study came out in Sweden that found that human users were unable to switch off a robot after the robot had begged them not to be switched off. So we do indeed form emotional attachment to machines, which is why robots are increasingly used in elderly care or mental health care. And perhaps it doesn't matter how intimacy is generated. I mean, is it less real even though it's artificial as long as we're feeling it? And perhaps that's the ultimate romantic task, is to imbue meaning and soul into the machines. There's only one thing that machines can't do that remains inherently human and inherently romantic. That is to suffer. And that's the third and last rule, to suffer a little. Seems kind of counterintuitive, right? Because the way our workplace and customer experiences are designed, for the most part, are instant gratification, convenience, efficiency, maximum comfort, with Amazon soon delivering everything our heart can possibly desire to our doorstep via drones. In some countries, you can already order a priest through the Amazon platform. It's true. And yet, at the same time, why is it that more than 50,000 people embark on this annual pilgrimage to the Burning Man Festival, to the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, celebrating a week-long of radical self-expression and losing control? Why do thousands of people prefer to experience a movie in a warehouse, hospital, or prison rather than in a movie theater, as is the case with secret cinema? Why are we binge-watching and engaging in other extreme activities, as, for example, simulating our own death, which I hear is now a trend? So when you talk to evolutionary psychologists, they will tell you that our brains are still wired for the Stone Age. They were still looking for these life-threatening, existential, precarious events that give us a sense of fitness, of meaning, of being alive in the face of danger. However, we have all but banned these kinds of experiences from our modern, domesticated societies, but we need them. So what do? We go bungee jumping, skydiving, we run ultra marathons, or we go to the football stadium. That's where we can feel extreme emotions. And as long as we're able to experience and express that amount of passion, we don't have to be worried about AI and robots. And by the way, for the fan, for the football fan, it doesn't matter at the end of the day whether the team wins or loses. Real bonding and attachment is formed in defeat. And that's very different than the way we grow up in business, where we're all taught to be winners. It's all about winning. But the romantic organization is one where you're not only allowed to fail, but also allowed to lose. It's an environment that acknowledges also negative emotions, sadness, loss, grief. Because being human means being a full person. Being human means being a fan. So these are the three principles, the three rules of enchantment. Do the unnecessary, embrace the other, suffer a little. And those are essentially romantic traits. 200 years ago, the original romantic movement revolted against a regime of enlightenment and practical reason. And I believe we're on the cusp of a new romantic era. We need a new romantic revolution, this time coming from business, this time in response to the datafication, the mechanization, the automation of everything. And I do believe we're seeing a shift, a broader cultural shift away from the smart connected age that was fueled by data to a new romantic era, where different sets of virtues and principles are becoming important. Wandering instead of reacting, deep connection instead of connectivity, letting go instead of monitoring, big intuition instead of big data, occasional silence instead of constant chatter, mystery instead of transparency, vulnerability instead of calculated risk, passion instead of liking, and suffering and frustration instead of user-friendliness, meaning and significance instead of excellence. And yes, in case you wondered, there is an ROI of romance. If you're not innovative enough, well, maybe you don't have enough romantics in your organization. Fools who see the world as it is not, but could be. And if your customers are not loyal, if you want them to fall in love with you again and again and again, you have to give them more than just solutions to problems. But ultimately, for me, the most important ROI of romance is not even financial. It's more romance. And that's important because we live in this strange age of dissonance. We're more connected than ever, but we're also lonelier than ever before. We're drowning in an abundance of data, but the prevailing sentiment of our time is one of loss. We're losing continuity, certainty, stability, our story, maybe even our human agency in light of AI and automation. And that's why it's so important that we build and nurture brands and organizations that are like gardens, not machines, that value, again, what we cannot measure, that create products, services, experiences that are not only more useful and convenient, but also more beautiful. And I'm not only a romantic, I'm also an optimist. I believe if we combine the magic of exponential technology, such as AI, with these inherently human qualities, which to me are romantic traits, then perhaps we can not only be exponentially more productive or exponentially more efficient, but just a tiny little bit more human. And that's hopefully a future that not only a romantic like me can subscribe to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tim, I think the one thing that obviously strikes is that you're an industry, this is an industry that creates communal experiences, which is a form of intimacy, I suppose, that you share an experience. By the way, the reason that the balloons didn't work out was because it was 10,000 orange balloons, and the organisation you were merging with was Sinn Féin. And it was fortunate oversight. Sorry, thank you for doing a ding noise. Sorry. Anyway, our next speaker, by the way, so we go from the romance to a certain extent to the business and to future business models. Our next speaker is the founder of Livetree, a video streaming platform that hopes to transform the creation and distribution of film and TV to blockchain technology. At some point, ideally, he'll explain blockchain technology as well. And it may, these are notes here, it may just be a Netflix killer as well, it says here. So, you know, no challenge there. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ashley Turing.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here with you today. Truth be told, unlike probably most of you here, I'm actually a geek. I don't come from a content creation background. My background is actually computer science. And I run a TV technology startup called Livetree. We're building the next generation subscription video on demand, as Dara was saying, platform. But we'll get into that a bit later. For now, I'm here to talk about the FAANGS, and as an industry, how I believe we can beat them. So what is the FAANG? It's a term coined by CNBC's Jim Cramer as an acronym for some of the biggest tech companies in the world. As Dara explained, it's namely Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google. These leviathans have a market cap of over $3 trillion. So how do we compete in these markets controlled by these all-powerful companies? With deeper pockets than traditional broadcasters, a greater reach, especially when there are more and more the de facto place for 16 to 34-year-olds to go to. All thanks to powerful, but yet secretive AI that seemingly knows more about us than we've ever witnessed before. Meanwhile, broadcasters are seeing their programs' budgets slashed, viewing figures plummeting, and I'm not here to tell you that we can beat the FAANGs like Jeremy Corbyn through global regulation or taxes, because I don't believe that will ever happen to a meaningful effect. Today, instead, I want to share just three stories that I think highlight some of the key innovations in our industry. The first story is about trust and being positive. Before I started Livetree, I worked in the city. I helped almost all the tier 1 investment banks stay on the right side of regulation post the financial crash. It was a challenge that involved big data, AI, and a hell of a lot of money. So why did I leave? It was the simple fact I wasn't proud of what I was doing. I wanted to do something that empowers people and, dare I say it, change the world for the better. So I thought, how could I do it? And do you know what I came up with? Do you know what the most powerful way to change the world is? It's actually something we've been doing since the dawn of man. It's storytelling. So Livetree was born to help those to tell the stories that will change tomorrow. If we contrast that with Facebook and its origins, it was created by a bunch of guys to judge and rate women, really. It started on the premise of misusing our data, in that case, to get a girlfriend. And that underlying ethos is really its failing today. The lack of trust, profit at any cost, and the misuse of your personal data has led us to ask some pretty serious questions of Facebook, especially as they begin to push into the television world. Can we trust Facebook Watch to deliver truthful and life-enhancing content into our feeds? Or will we get clickbait content commissioned by algorithms designed to keep us in our filter bubbles? I believe the latter. And I wanted to see if there's a better way to harness the power of the crowd, to democratize the commissioning process, which might be a bit scary for some of you here, to enable you to choose not only what you watch and what gets made, but also to own and profit from this content too. With Livetree, we wanted to provide room for people to be part of the commissioning process by crowdfunding and voting for the shows and films they want to watch to help the most important stories, the ones that are going to change the world for the positive, get commissioned, get made, and ultimately share in the profits every time that film is streamed, licensed, or sold. So our goal in creating Livetree was to respect the crowd, respect your audience, start positively, and harness the power of the crowd to seed and showcase the stories that should be told. That leads me on to my second story. And as productions become more reliant on computers and data, my story explores how innovations in technology has led to opportunities. When I started working with Microsoft in the 90s, it's in the time of Internet 1.0, if you like. Video streaming was achieved through software like Real Player, Macromedia Flash, maybe you remember those. Streaming video wasn't easy because the internet was slow, and computers we had back then were less powerful than my phone is today. But through these technological barriers, companies such as Winamp, who I was fortunate enough to work with the founders of, capitalized on the technology benefits that they did offer. They launched an MP3 streaming product which reduced file sizes to meet the limitations of technology. Skip forward to 2000 and the noughties, I helped found the first online lottery. This business, again, was afforded by the advances in technology. In the midst of dot-com boom and the e-commerce was all the rage, faster computers and broadband gave rise to what I call Internet 2.0. And that's where we are today. With Internet 2.0, we saw the rise of companies such as Amazon, Apple, and Netflix. The evolution of the technology enabled these companies to redefine what we call the computer today. They became supercomputers, otherwise known as cloud. And the cloud is powered from 1 billion data sources of your life. They use your life data to move every conceivable market and place what I believe a potential chokehold over the future of film and television. Whether that's through iCloud or through Netflix, aggressively withholding viewing stats from even production companies and content creators, or Amazon, who makes more money from their cloud storage and processing for other companies than it does for all their payments through Amazon Prime or its stores. Let me just say that again. So Amazon makes more money from its cloud and Alexa services than it does from its marketplace and its Prime businesses. That's a lot of computing power for 3 companies to control. It's kind of scary to me. And I'll be honest with you, it's something you cannot compete with. You'll never be able to compete against them as long as you are operating in the same market as we know it today. So what's the next generation of the internet, and how can it help us move the market to our favor? Ideally, the next generation of the internet shifts the power from the centrally owned FAANG to a network of smaller computers owned by each of you. The idea of peer-to-peer technology isn't really new. You may have heard of BitTorrent. Many people use it to download content illegally. However, BitTorrent and other peer-to-peer technologies have one key problem. What's the incentive? What's the incentive for you to upload? And this is what I believe decentralized blockchain technology addresses. Blockchain technology is just a tool. It's a network of computers all joined together. But the technology provides financial incentives for us to join together as an industry. And this is why they will become more powerful than the FAANG-owned supercomputers. The decentralized cloud also has some pretty unique properties that we can leverage and benefit from. It gives us a data store. It's like a database, but it cannot be edited, altered, or modified. Once you put something in there, you can't change it. So it's a great place to store intellectual property or to put your contracts for royalties. And by doing so, it creates some efficiencies and these cost savings that will move the market. Remember, we don't need to reinvent services. We just need to do the same, but for cheaper and with better features. Features that protect your data and that are fairer. With Livetree, we chose to decentralize the processes that go into creation, into the funding, and the distribution of content, connecting you, the audience, and the creator in fairer and more efficient ways. Again, these services aren't really new. However, using some blockchain technology, we'll be able to do it a bit cheaper and a bit better with more features to shift the market a bit beyond the control of the FAANGs. So when we decentralize the markets, we all benefit, and ultimately, we beat the FAANGs. This leads me to my third story, which is about combining life lessons. So Livetree originally started as a crowdfunding business for film and TV, like Kickstarter. But it was dedicated to content, and it had a pretty unique marketing approach, which was built into the fundraising. But after capturing market share and growing 20% month on month, I recognized it wasn't really serving the purpose it started out for. We were raising on average about £10,000 to £15,000 per project, and as I'm sure you all know, typically that's only a fraction of what is needed to realize a project. So that's why I took the decision, perhaps foolish, to re-examine the entire creation, funding, and distribution process, and place AI at the heart of our new platform. AI is indeed a powerful tool, and it will change our world if used correctly. Driverless cars, innovations in healthcare, and urban planning all will have a dramatic impact in our lives over the next few years. However, as companies such as Google continue to push ever more secretive recommendations to us, through YouTube notoriously recommending conspiracy theories, extreme content, clickbait, we have to remember, as Tim was saying, it's just a tool. It will never be able to combine the life experiences that we have a moral compass, or create something entirely new. It's too easy to become complacent and let the computer do all the work. We have to constantly point AI in the right direction. So what's the solution? Our AI runs on decentralized servers, meaning the goals are transparent. Anyone can check the algorithms to see exactly what they do and how they work. The data fed to the algorithms are also controlled by the user. They can choose exactly how much or how little of their personal data they want to include. We use AI to help creators predict audience sizes and the related value of the projects to help them access funding and the distribution they need. But will this be enough? The simple answer is no. We need an open debate and discussion around what services and jobs we want AI to replace within the entertainment industry. But moreover, we need to stay human, keep making mistakes, and combine our life lessons. So to conclude, we beat Facebook by positively harnessing the power of the crowd. We beat Amazon, Apple, and Netflix by creating efficiencies and decentralizing benefits in the entertainment world to shift the market to our favor. We beat Google by being free to question what drives the algorithms that rule our lives. I'll leave you with a quote. It's by John Cage. I cannot understand why people are frightened by new ideas. I'm frightened by the old ones. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ashley. It's all very exciting in brave new world, excuse me, although I'm bound to be at least one person in the room going, I just want to make more cash in the attic. Who do I ask? It was quite eerie to know that Amazon do as much work in terms of hosting and in terms of Alexa. I do not have Alexa. I was fond of the idea of home automation in some weird fantasy that you'd have Alexa in your home and you'd walk in with your lady with you and you'd go, Alexa, play some Prince. And it would just smoothly lubricate the moment. And obviously the reality about AI and voice recognition software is that you're far more likely to go, Alexa, play some Prince, and Alexa will go, printing documents now. And then you have to fuck to the incessant rhythm of the printer. And that is, I'm not a young man, but that is notoriously difficult to maintain. 4 or 5 minutes tops, I'm praying for a paper jam. That may seem like a bit of a stretch, but honestly, our next speaker was worried about saying fuck, so I thought I'd just lower the tone. Immediately and make it much easier. Our final speaker today is indeed from the work, I would say, has been involved in the creation of content creation of future worlds for the entertainment industry, for technology companies, for cities. Let's put our hands together for Monica Bielskite.
Hi, I'm Monica and it's a pleasure to be here. I wanted, so my talk is titled No Such Thing as Mediocre Future, and I'll explain why do I think so. But first, I wanted to ask a few people in the audience what mediocrity is for you. Here you go.
Not caring, not being passionate about something.
Who else would like? Here you go. What mediocrity is for you?
Averageness.
Averageness. What mediocrity is for you, gentlemen there?
Just good enough.
Just good enough. Okay. So why there is no such thing as mediocre future? I feel we are at this turning point as a humanity where the old belief that future is boring really doesn't stand anymore. You know, we were disappointed not having the flying cars, and now we're realizing that we are at this moment of truly existential threats, not just for humanity, not just for our species, but truly for all life on Earth. So, as a futurist, I'm always asked, what is the future of this or what is the future of that? Anybody who finds out that that's what I do, they want to know what is the future of their industry, their job, their life. But truly, there is no future. There are only possible futures. These are the futures that are being shaped all day and every day, not just by things that we do, but very much by things that we don't do. All the time that we look away, all the time that we disengage, all the time that we just allow for it to happen somewhere else. How the way we act upon future really starts with ideas that we have about the future. Ideas have impact. We're not there yet. We do not have contact lenses. AR, VR, MR is still very janky. Yet, we're entering that moment where the physical reality and its digital modification is becoming less and less distinguishable. How many of you heard here about the deep fakes? Right? This boundary is getting blurred. Soon we will be replacing elements of our physical experience in life with digital integration. Talk about fake news in that age. But today we have to recognize that media is the modern day mythology. Maybe I could even say that those who control the fantasy control the future. We think that it's the great technologists, the Elon Musks and Larry Pages and Sergey Brins, that are inventing and making the future happen. But when you look into the lives and biographies of most of them, it all started with a science fiction movie or a book or a series or something in that space. So I believe, and the reason why I am engaged in science fiction world design is that because it is the most powerful form of political imaging. I'm paraphrasing Nnedi Okorafor here, the great American Nigerian science fiction writer. Where I come from into the world of science fiction is really this James Baldwin quote. The role of the artist is exactly the same as the lover. If I love you, I have to make you conscious of things you don't see. So in science fiction, we have an opportunity to prototype things that do not exist, to prototype possible realities rather than just keep perpetuating existing stereotypes and stigmas. How come we so rarely see that being done? My friend Laurie Penny says that cultures are defined not only by the stories they tell, but also the ones that they don't. There's no such thing as voiceless people. It's people whose voices are being taken away, who are being silenced, or who are not being given the mic. So everything that we choose to exclude matters as much, if not even more, than things that we continuously include. So let's look at a few examples of the kind of future that we are being delivered and stuffed all day, every day. Altered carbon, Blade Runner 2049, more of Blade Runner 2049, more of Blade Runner 2049, the American version of Ghost in a Shell. What do we see? Continuously objectified female body, polluted dystopian isolated cities, singular hero journey ad nauseum. What happens if I type in sci-fi city on Google? I only get dystopian results. Even when I type in futuristic city and tag utopian, what I see is the green versions of something that ultimately is a corporate state dystopia. Green, yes, but still dystopic as fuck. Sorry. So what does dystopia lack, right? Let's examine. If we want to create something that's not utopia, but I'd say protopia, something that is better, something that is more imaginative, something that has advanced from where we are at today. We need to understand what these dystopias lack. Diversity, yes. Gender, cultural, the one of abilities. But not just this and that, but really dystopia, the diversity beyond binaries. Not just let's have more women and say future is female. Let's recognize that future is a spectrum. Not just have black movies. Yes, that is so amazing. But let's include more people of all cultural and racial backgrounds in these story worlds that we design. Community narratives, how much we need more stories of people coming together beyond all and whatever differences that they might have. Values evolution. If we watch the kids today, we realize that access is so much more important than ownership for them. And there's almost a disdain for sort of overexposed luxury. Environmental awareness. I mean, how much we need to say that climate issue is the most important thing that we're facing today. And there are so many amazing people doing things to solve that problem. Can we see more of the stories that show us that? Celebration of physical presence. Why the future is so lonely? Where is sensuality? Where is human connection? Where is our bodily presence in the future? We are emotional, creative, playful animals. Why we continue being showed in the future tense as sticks with brains on top of them. Ritual and spirituality. It's such an important thing around the world. Why we do not see futures where spirituality and ritual has integrated that future life. Creativity, youth, and subculture, so important for me. As the example that you saw, right? The futuristic city that is utopian and green, yet does not include any of our diversity, especially the expressions of our youth. So, I want to say that nostalgia truly is poison, right? We should be scared of the old ideas, not the new ones. We should carefully examine the new ones. But wallowing in the past and wanting to recreate it is poison. Enough of the 80s regurgitation of what future was back then. But also fuck techno-fetishism. Technology is not a magic pill. We have to stop looking at it as this external thing that has solutions of its own. Let's see it as an extension of our bodies and our minds, as the tools that we create, we design, and we embed our biases into them. As Audrey Tang says, when we hear the singularity is near, let us remember plurality is here. Singularity is a sci-fi term of supercomputers becoming so powerful that essentially humans, as we know, become obsolete. And it's a theoretical future that is being preached as a theology of something, sort of the upcoming robot apocalypse. But we have plurality here, right now. Can we learn to celebrate that and learn from it? Technological progress without humanitarian evolution always equals dystopian future. The real challenge today is to imagine a future that has hope in it. And that hope cannot be in technology. It has to be in our humanity. One of the first great examples of that on that mass scale is Black Panther world design. It's a city that is futuristic, technological, smart, but it's also green. It's also humane. The street level exists in there. Even the King T'Challa goes into it. The women, so powerful. I want to actually read a quote of something that just happened that I could not embed into my talk. And it's Hannah Beachler, the production designer of Black Panther, truly a personal heroine of mine and also a friend, who says in her latest talk, in the same conference that I'm speaking tomorrow in San Francisco. I want everybody to think about what futures are. When you watch the movies, think about what future will do for someone next to you, somebody sitting next to you, people that you love most. When you're on a bus in your neighborhood, think about how tech and media create those limited realities. Think about how tech and media limits realities. And she speaks about her process of how she designed the world of Wakanda. I had to become Wakandan. I had to believe in this place. It's about people loving people again. It's about that experience. I want to remind that innovation is implementing a novel behavior or idea in a practical way which is adopted by others, changing how things are done. And creativity really is generation of novel forms of behavior ideas, regardless of subsequent application. It always starts with creativity. It always starts with imagining what can be first. Innovation is what follows. Creatives have a key role in designing tomorrow. There are no foreign lands. It is a traveler only who is foreign. So how do we become these people that could design more contextual and more inclusive futures? Maybe we have to stop thinking about this or that being a foreign land and just really step into it. If everybody in the room that are writing these stories or creating these story worlds have the same experiences, our stories will be the same. So here's me in the Amazon jungle with the shamans, I don't know why it's not clicking, in some of the craziest and least inhabitable places on the earth, in visiting crazy art pieces in the middle of Sahara Desert, participating in rituals and ceremonies and celebrations around the world, and really spending time with people, spending time with the kids especially. It's so important to immerse yourself in the world and really go out there and explore. These are some examples of the kind of world that I created based on that. But I'm still dependent on what is being commissioned from me. And unfortunately, most of the time, these are still very dystopian, very cyberpunky futures. And as much as I can, it's not working well, the clicker. As much as I can, I try to bring in beauty and magic into it. But I won't change really how these story worlds are designed unless we start commissioning different kind of stories. So now is the future. Future is always now. I don't know why it is not moving. Future is always now. There are no answers, only choices. And these are the choices that we are making all day and every day. And I want to quote Nelson Mandela here, who says, "May our choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." The scope of our reality is defined by the scope of our dreams. So what is the future you dream? And more importantly, and maybe that's a question I can leave you with for the day, for the week, for the month, for this year, maybe for your lifetime. What is the future that we can dream together? Thank you.
You can only dream that someday in the future there will be a better clicker.
That is such an issue.
It is. It constantly is. It's a crazy dream. That's not even. You remind me of a quote, which is, "There is no future but that we create for ourselves." The words of Sarah Connors at the end of Terminator 2. Little did you know there'd be 4 more films. Why will you not leave Sarah alone? Anyway, we're going to broaden this out. I'm drawing questions from you all. You're all have, in your own way, very positive views of it, but yet there are implications for what you say which are possibly negative for industries like this. The first question I have on the list here is why would I, the owner of a small indie, go to Livetree over Netflix or YouTube? What's in it for producers? Ultimately, that is a worry people have.
Sure. So, I mean, what we're trying to do is give those indies a connection to some of the larger broadcasters, some of the financiers, to help their passion projects come to reality. So indie producers have a number of projects within their slate that I feel don't really have the voice that they should, and that do actually have an audience and do have a community that would support them. And I think what we're trying to do with Livetree is bring that community, bring that audience to those projects, and connect them by giving them a voice and by giving a community behind them. We're giving them the packaging for them to take that to financiers, to take that to other distribution methods, and get their shows made.
The fear that people have, I suppose, about any of these kind of financial models is that we've already seen what happened to, because of Winamp, because of Spotify, that it essentially kills the physical medium for content and replaces it with the digital medium, which is grand if you're a band or a comedian because you can tour. You can't tour television. Is there a danger that this will lower the value of content? And is that a danger generally across the industry, that as content is more available and platforms are filled with stuff, that you lower the value of things, and that to the point it's difficult to make money making them?
Well, I mean, I think it's also an opportunity, and I think you should look at it as an opportunity for content that is not being shown to have a place and to have an output and a distribution method that would not be seen before, that would connect, potentially would be restricted at the commission process, that would not be able to see the light of day.
But you understand what the fear that people have as this goes on, that it'll spread whatever pot there is of people's money that they wish to pay for content, gets spread out, much like a series of Spotify payments, which are increasingly tiny. Sorry, that makes sense. Sorry, tiny for content producers, that it may be difficult to maintain it's like a business model, your office with your staff, if this is how things are funded in the future.
I think there's going to be a combination. I think it boils down to great content, and it doesn't matter, if you're coming from an industry and you've got that experience in the commissioning process, and you know the industry and you know how storytelling works, that will always rise to the top. What we're aiming at is really at the passion projects and giving a voice to those stories that should be told that are not being told right now.
There is a traditional phrase that content is king. Is that still the case? Will that still be the case 5-10 years?
I think so. I think it's always going to be about the story, and what is that story, and can we expand those stories to be not so restricted to one particular audience? Can we expand the interest in those stories to be about different types of documentaries that engage us in different ways, that connect us in different ways?
Do you feel the same in terms of the content makers? Presumably, there still has to be at some point. For all the talk of AI is not going to create new stories.
Yeah, I think the only way to beat AI is that we create stories that AI cannot predict. So AI can't feel, can't experience. So a story, I think, will remain inherently human. I think with regards to blockchain, there is a danger, of course, also that we're going to be disappointed again. Right, so this is sort of the second, third, fourth wave of technology that's promising to decentralize and democratize. We were hoping Facebook might do that, and then, we know what happened. So I think the question is, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this, as you incubate these services, are the FAANGS going to move in at some point and going to monopolize it, and then it's going to be a consolidation, and we'll see what happened with social media and those platforms. So how do we prevent that from happening, that we're going to be disappointed again?
Well, I think, we have to be realistic, and the technology as it is right now is really basic. We're looking at 1994 levels of services, and as you were saying, you know, all of this technology is just a tool, and how do we want to use it? So, you know, the internet provided certain set of services, enabled us to connect together, produce efficiencies in email, replacing post offices, and as we were talking about e-commerce, to a large extent replacing the shopping experience. What does blockchain do? Well, it offers us a distributed ledger, this store. It offers us a way to come to a consensus together. So it provides some additional services that we can work and provide something else. Now, how we use those services and how we actually implement it is you know, something that we're working on to utilize those to our benefit as an industry, to try and take back some of that centrally controlled power. I think the philosophical, you know, arguments to decentralization are a lot broader than what the technology can actually deliver. And I think, you know, we're trying to stay on the side of what can it actually do for us right now? What can we do with this technology that will help realize this notion of decentralization?
How will our consumption of content change over the next whatever period? I know it's literally the kind of question you said you don't want to be asked, but how do you think we will take our content differently?
Yeah, a couple of things actually I wanted to add to the questions that were asked before about content being king. I find it very interesting, this emerging trend, how it's not that content creators are kings, but it becomes less important the individual piece of content and more really the flow of content that certain creators produce, especially for the younger generation, the Gen X, millennials, younger side of millennials. And the importance of integrity. If you tell these stories, also like, how do you live? And what is your narrative as part of that? You only become credible if you are actually, you know, if you follow the same integrity that you preach in the content. So that's interesting thing maybe to add. Another thing is the working with AI. Now we're realizing that collaborating with algorithms, collaborating with robots and machines is very important. It's one of the key skills that the kids are being taught today. But I think an emergent job is going to be questioning the algorithm. Really questioning the choices of AI and robots and machines. And really, I mean, that's kind of similar to what you're saying. But it's not just trying to be uniquely human, specifically looking at the choices that the AI is making and really finding where we are not liking that direction and where a certain direction is becoming sort of an iteration of something more and more unethical. So there's that. And then how are we going to be consuming content in the future? That's another area that I'm very deeply in, especially as a futurist, the future of content, experience, and ultimately looking into the future of computation. So immersive media technology, augmented virtual mixed reality, I like to bring these together and say extended reality, not so much virtual augmented, they are merging together. You know, where we're going is the digital world being enmeshed with the physical in such a way that our reality is this transparency mode that we choose. So we are moving into the space where we're not watching something, we are in it. You know, and that's where the world design comes to its full potential. But what does that mean, where you don't watch anymore when you're in it? What kind of ethical questions it raises? And how it changes everything from the way we design content. It's not about storytelling anymore, it's about story experience. And also horror, violence-based genres that we love so much when we watch on a little screen, right? Because we can always look away, turn it down, etc. But when we're truly in it, it affects us in such a visceral manner. How does it change the kind of experiences, the kind of stories, the kind of worlds that we'd be creating? It's very interesting for me.
Are we moving towards even less intimacy, towards less communal experiences? Are we moving away to more enclosed solo consumption environments?
I don't think so. I think, and some of the examples I cited, I think shows there's nothing more attractive, and I think that will always be the case, than a shared human experience or collective experience, especially if it's unexpected and if it does something that is not predictable. I think that's why we're doing these things. That's why we're going to football games and Burning Man and so forth. And I don't think that will change. However, how we experience it will change. You know, so it will be more hybrid. It will maybe be in a virtual environment, not in a physical environment. And which is why I believe it's going to be so important that we master these rituals, right? That we have multiple identities and we know how to transition between these worlds and how to get back into our own world. So it's a whole new skill set that we need: imagination, empathy, and the ability to transition. So I think that will change. But the experience and the need for intimacy, I think that's too human to ever going to go away.
So when we, sorry, apologies.
I agree and disagree with that. I think we're seeing that rift. You know, people that choose intimacy want more and more of it, and more sort of conversation about vulnerability and what really matters, etc. But on the other side, we have the whole otaku community and incels and stuff like that, right? People that specifically choose to isolate themselves. Like everything around sort of internet trolling is, these are people literally that live in a basement and spend their life just being abusive to others on the internet. So there's that rift, and it's like, that's why we are on such a sharp sort of edge right now. Like we need to bring more people into the intimacy, into caring about what really matters, and we in a room should be doing just about that.
Just not to linger on the issue of platforms here, you see trends in technology, 3D briefly, and then left. People made investments in that, and it turned out not to be the platform of the future. VR hasn't quite found the killer app, although I love VR, hasn't quite found to stretch through. We tend to be suddenly very optimistic about certainly curved televisions, whatever. They have as fads in technology as much as anything else, whatever. Do you see VR or AR, or what do you see as being the platforms of the future? Any of you at all on that?
Well, I think, you know, if you look at the porn industry, which has like been actually quite a leading edge in terms of visuals. I mean, I think VR, that's probably the wrong way to say it, but in terms of technology, you know, I think they're really adopting VR as a technology, and I think as the big tech companies are starting to, you know, Microsoft is starting to come in with augmented reality, where it's actually used within the business context to, you know, put together 3D models or realize actual value. I think those will be starting to be the trends that we'll start to see.
Yeah, so I think the reason to sort of sift through these sort of gimmicks is really, because a lot of really bad marketing has been done, a lot of really, really bad investments have been done. Like I've been in VR since the sort of the beginning of the third wave, and I just couldn't understand how some of the ventures were being funded. I'm like, there's no chance this will work at all. So a lot of money has been splattered on just really bad ideas, and that's why we have this impression that these things might not take off, might be another 3D TV, etc. The way you sift through it is look at what truly is the future of computation. Like what underlies what the future of computation is, where are we going in terms of that? And if it plugs into that, where is computation? Computation is in everything that we do. So sift through gaming and see where the computation is going, and that will be the platform through which we will be consuming all and any information truly.
We're coming to the end. I suppose the key question is, in 10 years' time, will we still making cash in the attic? Yes, the audience has said yes. Yes.
There you go. They know this better.
Okay, great. We have only a few seconds left, which means I can't do my killer VR and porn routine, which is genuinely really good. Honestly, it's really good. But, well, you'll have to see it another time. It has been, this has been, I have to say, with the more Silicon Valley type talk than you're probably used to having at the television festival, which is kind of just incredibly blue sky. And so hopefully there are issues you want to. We didn't get to a lot of stuff. We'll get a chance to get many questions in. Enjoy the rest of the festival. We're raising to thank our sponsors, Broadcast Intelligence, for Ricky Cooper and Louise Cary for producing this session. Everyone asked questions, and of course our three speakers, Tim Leibrecht, Ashley Turing, and Monica Bilskitten. Thank you.